Let's dive into the discussions shaping the nation.
I asked you when I spoke earlier on, will this government stop facilitating the sale of Israeli war bonds through the Irish Central Bank? It is an absolute outrage that is allowed. So maybe your official can fill you in there. I'm quite happy if you want to confer with them. Okay. You raised your concern for the Middle East, and you said you condemned, in your Taoiseach speech, you said you condemned the attacks that Israel has resumed against the people of Gaza and the ongoing attacks on the West Bank. You don't call it genocide, and your European partners refuse even to mention the name Israel when these horrific attacks are taking place. But you say, the Taoiseach says, he condemns it. So I ask you, what are you going to do about it? Because while Israeli war bonds, which are being used to finance this horror that is being visited on the people of Gaza, while they continue to be sold through the Irish Central Bank, Ireland is complicit. So I ask you, are you going to do anything about that to show example to your European colleagues who are up to their neck in complicity with this horrific action? The second question I have, just briefly, Jeffrey Goldberg from The Atlantic has just confirmed with a tweet thread of the thread he was in with Vance, Peter Hegseth, all the various leading figures in the Trump administration over the missile attacks on Yemen. And in it, he says the following: from a messaging standpoint, we absolutely must add to this of the horribles on why the Europeans must invest in their defence. So, as they bomb Yemen, they are pushing Europe to spend more on defence. Isn't the European Union dancing to the tune of the Trump administration in its plans to ramp up military expenditure in Europe?
Thank you.
And it's kind of a free-for-all, but I'm happy to answer. But in some ways, I'm limited to answering what comes before the European Council, because I don't have information on some specific items that weren't discussed at the European Council, and nor am I the Minister for some areas. I do want to take one point, though, that has been raised by a number of people, particularly Deputy Mary Lou McDonald, just in relation to the Taoiseach apparently not meeting with the Special Rapporteur for Palestine. The Taoiseach met with her boss at the European Council last week, the Secretary-General of the United Nations, and raised directly with him in front of the other leaders the situation in Palestine and Ireland's concerns, and indeed many of the concerns that are raised here in the Dáil. And I'd just like to put that on the record, because it is very, very important. There's a lot of misinformation going out here in relation to what the Taoiseach said or didn't say at the European Council, but I can tell you absolutely very clearly that he did that at the European Council. I think it's also important for people to understand what the European Council is. Ireland doesn't decide the conclusions of the European Council. Ireland is one of 27 countries that comes together with our various views and nuances that happen in every single country, and we work together not to take minutes, as some people have suggested they are, but instead to give direction to the European Commission, to the Council, to the Parliament, as to where we see things going in a general way. And the workflow follows from that in those institutions. It's also very, very important to note, because there's a lot of talk about war and peace and everything. Defence policy is a matter for member states, and the conclusions, the bit you didn't read out in the chamber, refer to the specific traditions of certain member states. It's written in there, acknowledging countries like Ireland, countries like Austria, countries like Cyprus and Malta, acknowledging what's happening there. In relation to the specific issue that Deputy Richard Boyd Barrett raised about on the central bank, I assume that will be a matter for the Department of Finance, and it can be answered there. But Ireland was to the fore in putting our voice forward in the conclusions. For example, I raised the airstrikes at the General Affairs Council on Tuesday, and the Tuesday before the meeting, in preparation for the meeting, happened the night before, and I'm glad that there was reference to that there. But again, you have 27 countries around the table, all with different nuances and views. In relation to energy, I think the biggest decoupling we need is decarbonisation. That's the decoupling that we need. It's something that Sinn Féin has opposed time and time again in terms of the various measures that we're doing to decarbonise, to remove that link between natural gas effectively and energy prices. But you've opposed every measure we brought in. You speak out of both sides of your mouth from Sinn Féin in relation to that.